Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. Just wanted to put together a list of verses that could easily be interpreted as either you need to have faith plus works for salvation, or you could possibly lose your salvation. And we touched on a few of these through some of the videos that we went through, but also a great brother in Christ, Matt, and his wife, Alina. They have their own YouTube channel and ministry, called Live by Faith. And Matt did an excellent video series on. It's like a 20-part series on some challenging verses, and he does a great job of explaining the context of these verses. And I just want to go through them quickly, and I will have links to each one of those videos in the description. And for any of the topics that you're curious about, I would highly encourage you to take a look and see what Matt has to say. He's going at this from the perspective of faith, and faith alone is required. So as always, I encourage you not to trust him or trust me or trust anyone else, but to take it to the Lord in prayer, and go from there. So I just want to quickly run through the list. The first part of his series is just some foundational verses on eternal security that he feels are foundational. On his second video, he goes through Hebrews 6 verses 4 through 8, and it's about, like, once you're coming to faith, can you lose your salvation? There certainly seems to be an implication there. In part 3, it's Hebrews 10 verses 26 through 31. It's about doing good works. So the question becomes, is Paul talking about salvation or sanctification there? Then in part 4, he talks about Matthew 24:13, which is about he who endures to the end shall be saved. So, like, who is he talking about? What does that mean exactly? Matt does a great job of explaining it. Then Matthew 7:21 through 23, which we went through, about depart from me, I never knew you. So, like, who is Jesus talking about there? And then 1 Corinthians 9 verse 27 in part 6. If I do not subject my body, I will be disqualified. So Matt goes on to explain, what is it exactly that we're being disqualified from. Then in part 7, he goes over Colossians 1 verse 23 about if we keep the faith, and what happens if we don't keep the faith. So he kind of goes through that and gives the context on that. And then in part 8, Philippians 2 verse 12, to work out our salvation, what exactly does that mean? In part 9, he looks at Revelation 3 verse 5, which references, like, your name being blotted out of the book of life. It's, sounds kind of scary. So what's that all about? In part 10, John chapter 15 verse 6, anyone who does not abide in me will be thrown into the fire. So that's kind of scary. What exactly does that mean? Part 11, James 2 verses 14 through 26. These are some verses that we didn't go into specifically. I didn't provide my opinion on it, but we kind of reviewed it. And, again, this was one of these verses where I felt like it was very, you could easily see how this could be interpreted as faith plus works being required. So, Matt does a far better job than I ever could of explaining the context of those verses and how he sees them being about, the fruitfulness of your faith versus salvation. Then in part 12, he goes through 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verses 9 through 11. The unrighteous will not inherit the kingdom. And does that mean that we need to do good works to be saved? So he kind of goes through that. Then in part 13, Galatians 5, verse 4, falling from grace. Does this mean that we can lose our salvation? Part 14, 2 Corinthians 11, verse 3, is about the deception in the garden, and what is it exactly, and how does that refer to our salvation? And then part 15, Romans 11:22, about getting cut off. What does God mean by this exactly? Part 16 is 2 Peter 2, verses 20 through 22. And turning away from righteousness once coming to the faith. Does this mean we can lose our salvation? Part 17, Matthew 7, verse 14, is about the narrow gate. What is that exactly? We went through that, I believe, in one of our earliest videos. Is it about perfect works? Is it about perfect faith, or both? Or what are we talking about there? Part 18, he goes through the parable of the sower. This is a really interesting one. Can you lose your salvation? I would highly encourage you to check that one out. Part 19, 2 Corinthians chapter 13, verse 5. Examine yourselves as to whether you are in the faith. Does that mean we need to do good works to save ourselves? And then in part 20, Matthew chapter 10, verses 32 and 33, I will deny you before my Father in heaven. Who is it that he's denying in that context? So some of these we went over. A lot of them we didn't and just mentioned them. Some of them we didn't mention at all. But Matt does a great job in all of these. I would just suggest maybe taking a screenshot of some of these description of these videos and verses, maybe pick a few that you're interested in. If you have time, go through all of them. But, if there's a couple that your piques your interest, I would really encourage you to go through them. So there you have it. I mean, and there may be others that are controversial as well, but this is definitely a good proportion of the ones that could be controversial. And so I love how Matt goes through all of them. So that's it. Any questions, feel free to DM me. I will, after sharing this video, I'll probably share a couple of videos around, another gentleman named Brother Michael from the Medic for Christ YouTube channel. Has a couple different posts and videos around just explaining the gospel, and he just does a great job. So I might share those and have some commentary on those. And then probably on Monday the 22nd, I plan to just put together a final video of, if all of this goes down on Tuesday the 23rd or Wednesday the 24th with respect to the rapture and the start of the tribulation. What exactly, what can we expect? And I'll just give you my best guess as to that, and some final thoughts and final encouragement. And then we'll just, pray that everything works out for the best for all of us. Thank you so much. I love you, and God bless you.